Hello, everybody. Welcome back to HashedUp. Today is all about Auradine. I sat down with Sanjay Gupta of Auradine and we discussed their ASIC developments, the company's history, and much, much more. Stay tuned and enjoy. All right, everybody. So like I said in the introduction, I'm here with Sanjay Gupta, strategy, business development, and marketing lead at Auradine. Or should I say lead or overseeing all of those? Sanjay, what is it? Hey, how are you?
No, I think it works either way. I go by whatever works. I'm the chief strategy officer, but anything works from within those.
All right, cool. We are at block height 834712. Hash rate of the 30-day is at 584 exahashes, steadily climbing. Hash price now after the difficulty increase of nearly 6% at $109.25 per petahash per day. So price still sort of pulling up the hash price consistently, and hash is trying to keep up. And I understand, Sanjay, your company Auradine is trying to add some value into that market of potential to bring that hash rate up. We're going to speak all about Auradine and your company today. But first, because I don't think I have ever seen you in any content, maybe give people your background, your Bitcoin story, and introduce yourself a little bit.
No, sure, Jesse. Once again, thanks for having me on the podcast. From my side, and I'm dating myself with this, Jesse, but I've been in the industry overall for a little over 30 years now. I've done undergrad in electronics engineering, but then post business school, I went more the management consulting route. I worked for many years at McKinsey. I was an associate partner there. And then from McKinsey, I worked for many years in financial services and fintech. So that includes places like Wells Fargo, like Capital One, which are big in financial services. And then I worked in digital payments extensively, where I led large, billion-dollar businesses. I've led large global operations in different places. And the part around digital payments is what got me particularly interested in the whole area around blockchain. And within that, even more acutely within Bitcoin, there is work that we are doing, and I was leading to drive adoption on the conversion of fiat currency into crypto and vice versa. And over the past several years, got really involved in that. And then through some connections, direct and indirect, I met with the co-founders of Auradine, got very interested with what they're doing, got quite excited with them, and joined them around a year ago to take the role of this chief strategy officer at Auradine.
Can you elaborate a bit on what excited you? Not everybody goes into Bitcoin mining at first, and then especially with a financial background, and then secondly, people stay mostly far away from anything that has to do with details on ASICs and how they work and producing more of them. What hooked you?
No, sure, Jesse. So, in terms of what interested me and excited me, first of all, just the decentralized nature of the whole crypto, whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's Ethereum or whether it's other altcoins. The nature of decentralization, I think, is something new and unique. In one of my previous companies, I was also working for Global Money Movement, one of the largest companies in global money movement around the world. And you see that there's a lot of friction costs when it comes to even exchange of value. And that is something where you see that as the whole blockchain protocols continue to evolve, I think not just as a store of value, but as an exchange of value, it becomes very powerful. So that is something of interest. Along with the exchange of value, there's also notion upon just exchange of information and ideas. We've seen the growth of NFTs. We saw the growth of ordinals on the Bitcoin exchange, the whole chain. And that is something which I think is just scratching the top of the surface, right? We're not getting to the depth even now. The applications on privacy, identity management, which are emerging applications as well. We think that there's a lot of opportunity going beyond that. So that drew me into it.
All right.
And then I've been a technologist from undergrad, so technology and deep tech draws me even further. So this got me back to my technology roots after being many years more on the financial services and fintech and
Mm.
management consulting
All
side.
right, interesting. So it sort of brought you in from the more institutional side. I mean, obviously, at this point, I have to say, right, there's a big difference between Bitcoin and everything else, especially when it comes to the decentralization aspect. And since this is hosted on Swan's YouTube channel, that has to be stated at this point. Um,
Of course.
but what do your former colleagues think of what you're doing now when you speak to them privately? Like, what is their opinion on Bitcoin as a store of value and medium of exchange? Do they still see it skeptically, or are they on board now with the ETFs that came to market? What are their thoughts?
So as you can imagine, there's a spectrum of emotions on that. There's some people who are actually very enthusiastic about Bitcoin, and they're also very enthusiastic about the fact that not just being decentralized, the whole proof of work, I think, has also been a key element of security for the network, which is critical. I think the notion that it's not run by any particular centralized or semi-centralized entity, I think, is attractive to a lot of people. And I think there's some people who've been following Bitcoin, and they see that this is the ongoing future of what can be the backbone of you talk about electronic transactions, talk about digital currencies in different ways and forms, right? So there's a lot of people that there's another camp that is it's almost like you say anything to do with Bitcoin, anything to do with crypto. They've hated it for a long time, and they'll continue to be. So there's the non-believers, complete other end of the spectrum, and those who think that I've gone crazy, I've gone to the dark side, and they say, hey, I hope you know what you're doing. And then you have people in the middle who would say, I'm getting to know more about Bitcoin. And I think there's a lot of people who still feel very positive about Bitcoin. But to your point about this being a Bitcoin oriented podcast, they're still less enthusiastic around other chains and protocols because of the some of the questions around security, around scalability, and about governance and the ownership of that as well.
So yeah, yeah, it covers the whole spectrum. But I think I see the same thing. But especially the hardcore non-believers, they at some point realize like it's not even they understand it, right, and they're behind it, but it's just admitting publicly when for years you've been saying no, then saying yes is quite a huge leap for many people, right? But tell me about Auradine more, Sanjay. Who's behind Auradine? Who founded it, and why was it started? What was the motivation to start an ASIC manufacturing company?
No, sure. So Auradine, just to give a quick background, we are founded in Silicon Valley around 2 years ago, and we were founded as a high tech company. We were looking at solving big, complex problems that have an impact on many people and economies around the world. So we are focusing upon disrupting and innovating within the whole world of internet infrastructure. And as we got deeper into that, we said the whole area of blockchain and within that, Bitcoin is a big opportunity for driving innovation and differentiation. Now, as we also scouted the market, we said that the whole area of Bitcoin and driving innovation within Bitcoin mining is critical. We also saw that a lot of the supply then and even today is highly concentrated within Chinese based suppliers. So there really was no non Chinese supplier worth of note. There were six or seven other companies trying, but nobody who had really succeeded. So our take from day one was that we want to be a long term iconic company which drives innovation in the space. And I can talk about the types of innovation that we're doing, in a moment. But that was the background or the essence, right? So we are founded here. We put together what we think is a truly world-class team with very deep expertise in designing semiconductor chips, developing full systems around that, developing the software stack in a distinctive way. And then we got very good interest from venture capital partners and investors that we raised a significant round, our Series A that we announced. So I think we've got good investors, a good team, and we've been really working very intensively, very hard to get quality products to market for miners across the world.
When you raise money, how much did you raise?
So we announced it publicly last year. In our Series A, we raised $81 million,
$81 million.
and that was
So,
81 million.
what do
That's
you
right.
use that on, Sanjay? Like, if just give me the broad overview. What is that money used on? You raise 81 million bucks. What do you do with it? Like, how much goes into manufacturing, chip design, and all the rest?
Yeah, so just, I mean, I can give you some broad
Yeah,
areas.
please.
I cannot, of course,
Of
discuss
course.
the detailed specifics for competitive, reasons on how exactly we spend it. But, for being in the semiconductor industry, R&D is very capital intensive. So in our case, we've got a team that designs cutting edge ASIC chips, which are application specific chips for Bitcoin mining. Just designing that chip and doing what is called the tape out of that chip
Hmm.
requires many millions or tens of millions of dollars to actually just design one chip.
Can you?
So
Mm,
putting money in that R&D is been a big focus for us. Putting money in the whole design process around that. So in designing, these really high quality systems, designing the software, having the team that's a top-notch team on each of these dimensions is where we spend a lot of that capital. So we've been really spending it in R&D, and then of course now in ramping up our operations and supply chain activities, Jesse.
what does taping out mean? Can you briefly explain that?
Sure. So for somebody who's not been in the semiconductor industry, I can explain what it is. So these semiconductor chips are really at the cutting edge of physics, where you're talking about these micro units, what is called transistors, which are in the range of nanometers, uh, and these are really really small. So you get billions of these transistors on one chip. You design the chip, and then imagine you've given the full design and blueprint of this chip design. Tape out is when you've actually given that blueprint and you send it to a fabricator. And a fabricator is the one who actually makes these chips for coming out in production in the real world. So that production process is very, very expensive. And that's why I said it costs tens of millions of dollars to send that design to actually get manufactured in the fabrication unit.
And there's also only a few places around the world where you can do that, right? Is that also done in the US? And I guess before you answer that, maybe let's connect that to the question of sort of what the philosophy behind Auradine is. And no doubt you looked at the competition on the market that you already mentioned, and how did you want to differentiate yourselves from the competition? Where do you add something new?
Absolutely, Jesse. So when we did a lot of market research, we talked to a number of companies. I personally visited a number of data centers which are doing mining. Personally talked to a lot of companies that are doing mining across the world. And we wanted to have something that is addressing their pain points. So I'll give you illustrations of maybe three or four, key pain points. One was around the whole area of energy management. And we've designed a feature, what we call Energy Tune. It's a proprietary feature where, for instance, you can take our miners and move the power up or down, and the same thing for the hash rate up or down within seconds without rebooting. Whereas for anybody else in the marketplace, if they only have one or two modes of operating, and if you switch off the miner, you then have to reboot it, which takes a lot of time and effort. And it also puts strain on the miner. Right? So, this notion about being able to adjust the energy at any level for demand response or price response was a big gap in the marketplace. And that we said we'll build in house. Second big gap is that people would say in extreme climates, the miners would not work or work very poorly in hot climates or very cold climates. or in places that have a lot of dust and environmental, you can see in just the area around it is challenging. So our miners, we've designed them that they operate and we certify right up to 50 degrees Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit at the upper end. And on the lower end, our air cooled miners work right down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. And we heard from a lot of miners in places in the US. You have states like Texas, which has a lot of mining. It gets very hot in the summers. And a lot of miners say we lose production days and many hours of mining in the summers because of that. The other miners, they shut down at temperatures far below that. So that's another, for instance. We heard features around that it's very difficult to manage these individual miners. It takes a lot of time for asset management, for setting them up. We have something called zero touch provisioning, where you open the box, you take it out, you just plug it in, and it's a seamless connection for mining, where you're mining right away to your own pool, which you can pre-configure. So areas like this, which you said are truly differentiating and addressing pain points is what we want to do to go after. And then, of course, efficiency and output. We've been working on the cutting edge semiconductor chips to design it for high efficiency, best efficiency and high throughput.
What you said first is something that I've sort of mentioned previously on the show, where now ASICs are starting to be designed for specific use cases, and it sounds like you designed it around demand response, which is very interesting. All of those features, except for the last one, Sanjay, is that just chip design, or are you going into the hardware and the hash boards and all of that as well?
No, extensively across the board. So there is the element around the chip design drive the efficiency. So the joules per terahash, the terahash per second, it's a big driver of. A lot of the other features are actually driven by the system, which includes the hash board, control board, the software. We have unique software where we monitor every single chip on the hash board. And we optimize the output of every chip on the voltage and frequency of every chip. So you get the best performance. And it's also better for longevity because if any one chip is getting too hot, we back off. It's something which you call auto temp protection, which improves the longevity of the life. So it's a combination of the full system expertise, which we have in-house, the software, not just the firmware, but the whole software stack. We've got our own fleet management software that we offer as well, but we also have APIs that we also offer if somebody has their own fleet management software or is using any third-party software as well. So we've got the full capability around the ASIC design that we think has been critical for the area of this distinctive miners.
Okay, and so what does the process look like? I want to order a miner. How do I go about it? Because I don't see it on any of the many Telegram chats that I have when it comes to sourcing ASICs. Where do I get one, and how do I pre-configure my pool?
Sure. So in this case, we actually keep it quite. So one is that, Jesse, we are not in the retail market. So which is also the reason why we don't sell these on Amazon or general and retail. Our intent is to work closely with a number of significant miners and give them truly white glove and exclusive treatment. So we work very closely one-on-one. But if anybody wants to connect, they can actually reach out to me. I have a head of business development that they can reach out to, and his name is Tobin McComas or Toby McComas. And so just contact us, right? We have a website. It's www.auradine.com. There's different contacts out there as well. But otherwise, you can just reach out to us. We've already shipped miners to a large number of miners, very large number, where they've tried our units. We've got feedback. We're shipping on bulk quantities. So anybody interested in getting miners from us, just need very soon.
Two questions. Why do the immersion ASICs still look like air-cooled ASICs with the fans plugged off? And second question, what are your thoughts around two-phase immersion?
Yeah. So I think the two questions are interconnected, Jesse. So When we entered the market, in fact, we have people in the company who've worked in the telecom industry extensively, them in some of the best companies around the world, and in cybersecurity companies, the best companies around the world. And if you go to a data center which does telecom or cybersecurity, the form factor of the units are actually quite different. They come in what is called 1U, 2U type of units, which optimize the density of the racking. A lot of the feedback that we got was that a lot of the miners would prefer for a new company to come with a similar type of form factor that is there in the marketplace, that what people are used to. So our initial generation of machines, we said, let's keep broadly the same form factor for air cooled. And then for single phase immersion, largely it's without the fans. We actually do some modifications on that. We have special firmware. We have a special power supply unit, which we do on our immersion unit, which is quite different from what we do in air cool. So it's not exactly the same. The chips powering it are the same. In the case of two-phase immersion, we've actually come up with a completely unique design. So it's not something that you'll actually see which looks and feels like an air-cooled machine. In the case of two-phase immersion and even single-phase immersion, the dielectric fluid that the machines are put in can be quite expensive. And therefore, the density of mining makes a difference. You want to have miners which can do a lot in a small volume. So we've got a two-phase immersion design, which is a very special high-density design, which can optimize the hash rate while minimizing the size of the tank and the fluid that these machines are in. So we're already innovating on that. We're already getting to the next generations of these designs that are working. But of course, that takes the normal product lifetime in terms of design and coming to market in bulk. But at present, as I said, we have the same chips on single phase immersion, but the overall machine is quite different. And then for two phase immersion, it's completely different right there. Two phase immersion, it's more specialized, right to your point, and so therefore it's normally more sophisticated users who've had experience with mining over the good number of years are the ones that we've got more interest with versus somebody brand new into the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting now. I mean, it just shows if you compare what you're talking about and seeing that in action in the future, comparing that to what we have now, where people literally, dump ASICs, take the fans off, and dump them into oil. It seems very rustic, I want to say, almost, right? Because it's all about power density and immersion, and the case and all the air in the case, I guess, all the space that's not filled with hash boards is space that could be used for hashing. So it's all about power density, and that's one of the great things about Bitcoin mining as a type of demand, is that we can consume a lot of power on a very small amount of space. And I think that's also going to take it to the next level, especially going back when we talk about demand response, right? If you want to co-locate on substations or wherever, where you might have limited space within a fenced area or something else, but you want to consume a lot of power to move the grid, the frequency, that's a big positive, right? Interesting.
True.
Super cool.
True.
What does support look like when if the ASICs break? I guess it goes into the white glove experience as well that you mentioned. But what do I do if they break?
Yeah.
Do you have repair
Yeah,
centers,
it does.
parts? Is it similar? Even maybe talk about do repair technicians need special knowledge to repair the ASICs?
Great question, Jesse. So probably I'll answer that on three dimensions. The first is that we've set up a very strong customer support team, which we set it up from day one. We said we really want to be customer focused, and we treat the customer support and service very, very seriously. So that we've already got in place, and we put that team in touch with each of our customers, day minus 50, even as we're having sales and business development discussions, we involve the customer support team very early on so that there is a great interaction on that ongoing support, right? So that's point number one. The second is that we are really designing these systems. That was another part of the feedback that we had got, is that there's a lot of DOAs and a lot of RMAs that were coming in the marketplace. And we want to design our systems with a quality intent right up front, right? So the best form of repair is upfront quality so that you don't have too many machines that are going bad and they have to be then adjusted and repaired. The third is that within our design, like I mentioned, we have auto temp protection, which improves the longevity of the machine. We've also got a unique design, which we patented, which is that even in a hashboard, if more than one chips fail, the hashboard can continue to hash, where it's a very unique design of the architecture of that
Yeah.
hashboard and the overall power supply to that, right? So
Just
that's
to
something which is
give people
unique.
the background here. Sorry to interrupt you. What happens
Sure.
on other boards if one chip fails?
So from our understanding is that a lot of other systems that if one chip goes down or two chips go down, the hashboard stops hashing. And if the single hashboard starts hashing, in several of the cases, the entire system stops hashing as well, or it hashes erratically.
Hmm.
So in our case, that one is that we design it such that you don't have chips go down, but in case they do, you can have multiple chips go down in a hashboard, and the hashboard will continue, and the system will continue to hash.
Yeah,
So that
that's
really
great.
reduces repair and the need for ongoing back and forth and taking out chips and or taking out hashboards.
So how does your firmware then? Does the firmware flag if there's chips broken? Does it recognize it?
It does. So the firmware recognizes there's an element of both the hardware design, which is needed for this level of redundancy, and then, like I mentioned, we have this dynamic voltage and frequency scaling, which is a unique AI ML sort of based algorithms, which monitors the chips, monitors the hashboards, and makes the necessary adjustments through the firmwares
Mhm.
that we've got.
Okay. So, but back to my question, there's no special certification needed or whatever. I mean, sure, you designed them not to break, but you know,
Sure.
at least coming in from my angle, bringing those
So
ASICs to
so so
Africa,
far
I can
there's not. We
guarantee
actually think it's
you
very
they will
straightforward,
break.
Jesse. But at the same time, we're thinking of. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. I was just
So Jesse,
saying.
no, completely. So in sense,
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead, Jesse. I think we overlap with that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bit of a lag because I just lost connection. Sorry about that. So, I was gonna say I can almost guarantee you that deploying them in Nigeria or Kenya or South Africa or Angola or Ethiopia, they will break. And the question is, what do you do if they
Yes.
do?
No, sure. So we're and actually that's the fourth part is that we are already in active discussions with some repair partners and in different parts, both in North America as well as in outside of North America as well. And we're working on establishing those appropriate authorized, you can say, repair centers, and then any training as appropriate to the individual customers and any support from that. So that is a process that we're continuing to work on. As we expand in different geographies or have a large number of installations in any geography, we want to be sure that we have appropriate repair facilities trained, or we have a partnership with them that we can adjust to any kind of repairs that take place. So we're already well down that path, Jesse, and in terms of repair partners and training of technicians as well.
Okay. Can you go into more detail? What areas of the world you're looking at outside of NA, or not really?
So at present, we have a lot of our miners in multiple states in the US and in Canada. We've also shipped some miners to Europe at present. We've been very actively in discussions with the Middle East, which is a large area of mining. And then we're looking to other parts around the world, which includes Africa, other parts of Asia as well, and South America, where we've got a lot of demand, right? So we're
Mhm.
ramping it up. But so, at present, we've got a lot of installations in Canada, the US, and parts of Europe at present, besides some initial trials in the Middle East.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because that's exactly where immersion is. Yeah, probably the go-to solution, right? Where it gets hot and uncomfortable and dusty. What are the goals for market share for Auradine? I mean, we're at almost 600 exahashes right now. I think what did I say in the beginning? 584. Um, where do you guys see yourselves in a year, two, 10 years down the line? What sort of goals have you set?
Sure. So our intent, as I mentioned, is to be an enduring, iconic company that people can say that that Auradine has been around for many years and has made a really big impact on the industry. You see. Now, within that, our focus has been on ensuring we get the best value, best total cost of ownership, and strong repeat customers on an ongoing basis. Right, that's our goal. And we say by doing that, we will get significant market share. So we don't go the other way around. We say, let's do the right things, let's work with the right customers, let's support them the best way, and then demand and market share will automatically happen. Having said that, we're already fulfilling against some very large bulk orders already in 2024. So we have a very significant order book that we're already shipping against. We've got discussions for some very large orders that are underway for 2024 as well as for 2025. So our intent is that we become a very major player. Right.
Well,
One of the things that I was also mentioning right up front was around we think that the industry, just to be very candid, is very concentrated in
yeah.
terms of supply, and we think that's a very big risk. Where on the one side we said the Bitcoin protocol is decentralized, on the other side the supply of Bitcoin ASICs and miners is all from China. And that we think is a risk on multiple dimensions. So, our intent is that, we customers should have a choice. And we actually think the Bitcoin protocol itself, it's a big risk if they don't diversify supply.
Spell the risk out for the listeners. What specific risks do you see, and how could that play out in the worst case? What have you guys thought about?
Yeah, so of course I don't want to have any kind of like a doomsday scenario type of situation, Jesse. But if you asked for extreme situations, right? I mean, imagine if somebody had 51% control over Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, you could have a 51% attack on the network. And imagine that you have one geography which concentrates the supply of all the miners. You could, in an extreme situation, say, we are going to have all the miners for ourselves, and we're going to take over the Bitcoin protocol by 51% attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
So you're talking about an extreme scenario. That's an extreme scenario, right? But it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, which is, the whole decentralization notion of Bitcoin was exactly that. You don't want to have any one government, any one geography, any one person have control over a protocol
mm-hmm.
or a fiat, like in the case of currency, it's fiat currencies. So that's a whole ethos of Bitcoin is to be decentralized versus on the supply, it's completely centralized, which is a risk.
Yeah, so I mean, just to get into this a little bit, this is exactly why, mining is super important for proof of work, but then the part of the network that actually gets controlled is the nodes are the main player there, right? To see what goes and what doesn't, and this is exactly what makes Bitcoin mining so powerful. Is that all this capital allocation leads to more revenue, but doesn't actually give you control over the network. But the reason I love seeing this development is mainly competition. Right, you see competition from a company that has a completely different culture, that sees the problems differently, that caters to specific customers, that solve different problems, and that's what I love to see. And I hope to see that we see, I don't know, ASICs down the line being manufactured in Africa because there's a special use case that people want to design ASICs for. Same as in South America, and some maybe ASICs especially designed for methane mining and all the rest of it. So this is why I really love seeing this. And maybe give me some more background on where the ASICs then are produced. Is all the materials sourced from the US? I know that's a very key differentiator between you guys and the competition. Is that something? How far can you get into that?
Yeah, so I can give you the broad outline. So the team is largely based in the US.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Silicon Valley, and all of our design and intellectual property is from here. So all of the ASIC design, the system design, the firmware, the fleet management, all of the whole cloud delivery of that is all, can say, designed within the US. Now, as you're probably aware, Jesse, that the actual fabrication of these chips is only done by a few companies around the world and in a few geographies around the world. So we actually work with the leading fabricators around the world in their specific locations. The technology that we've developed, our very first ASIC that we announced, was on what we call a node, which is measured by nanometers, and it was on a 4 nanometer node, is what we announced. That technology is also being a fabrication unit is coming up in the US around that as well, and that would be fully interoperable with the US factory once that comes up. But the actual fabrication is then done in these global fabrication units. We've got different elements of the supply chain that we work on, which are in different parts around the world. And then we have capability to bring parts of that in the US, do the assemblies in the US. So, and we've also got a diversified supply chain where we do dual sourcing pretty much at every step of the supply chain as well. So we've got key elements of it, but it's all designed in the US, and we have the ability to actually even manufacture the ASIC chips and fabricate them in the US as the factories come up.
I can guess what dual sourcing means, but explain it from your point, please, and why it is important.
So dual sourcing means you have at least one or at least two suppliers for every critical item. So for instance, if we have a power supply unit, we've got two suppliers for that, and both of which are quality tested and approved, from us. If we have our control boards, right, we've got at least two suppliers. We've got the overall contract manufacturing and assembling. We've got at least two. We're also looking at, so every element of our supply chain, we're saying we want to be sure we have at least two suppliers, both of which are high quality suppliers and high reliable suppliers, so that if in any case we had issues with one or there are some geopolitical issues with anybody, we are well covered. So our intent is that we secure the supply chain fully, and then we have redundancy in the supply chain to ensure that for our customers, we don't have an issue in getting units to them on an ongoing basis.
Okay, interesting. The I want to understand more about how easy it is to ramp this up. You start with a few units, you get your first customers, then you get large bulk orders, as you said. How easy is it to ramp that up? What goes into ramping it up? And maybe link to, chips are being used for everything virtually that we have around us. How easy is it to get your foot in the door when it comes to the pipeline on production?
Sure. So I'll answer that in two parts. One is on the ASIC chips, which are the engine of the miners. And on the ASIC chips, I mentioned it's a very complex design. It takes tens of millions of dollars to design a chip and to get even the first sample back. But you have these large chip manufacturers which actually just do the fabrication. So think about if you're doing a pottery class, you design the pottery, but then you have to send it to a kiln to actually come back as a finished unit. So the fabricators are doing the same. In our case, one of the elements is about the background of our team, where we've had our co-founders, we have three co-founders who have very deep expertise in the area of semiconductors and silicon. And they worked with these top leading fabricators for 20 plus years. So normally, if you're a startup and you work with these large fabricators, it's very hard to get attention because they are working on Apple or Nvidia or somebody else. In our case, because of the history, the track record, and the relationship that we had with these large fabricators, we got attention right from day one. And we are closely working with these technical teams and sharing information freely both ways with them. So we're actually feel very pleased about that relationship and that security. On the other elements, it's a process where, of course, it's like ramping up. It's like, you're making more cars and you need to ramp up from making 10 cars to 1,000 cars to 10,000 cars a month. It's that ramp up process. We've again got people in the team who've done that in high volume industries like telecom equipment, like cybersecurity equipment before. And they work with these large suppliers in ramping it up. So there's this elements of ramping it up, but we're already well underway of doing that. and we believe we can actually, we're shipping out thousands of units a month without an issue. So we feel very confident about our overall ramp up process.
Okay. The fleet management software that you guys or that you mentioned, why did you decide to develop that as well? Why was that important?
Yeah. So there are a few elements in our fleet management that we brought in, which we thought are unique and different as compared to anything in the marketplace, Jesse. One is that we heard that there's a need for telemetry and analytics around the miners, which were not present in the level of depth as we have in certain other industries. So the ability to actually monitor, proactively understand if there's an issue with a miner or a set of miners, understand the temperature of each chip, each board, and doing that at a data center scale level was something which we found was non-existent or challenging. The second is that there is a feedback that we got is around profitability maximization. And one of the, again, unique features we built into our fleet management is a technology or capability which we call auto tune. And if you use that auto tune capability, the software can calculate the optimal profitability of the miner at what hash rate and what kilowatt you should be using to maximize profitability based upon the Bitcoin price, based upon the transaction price you're getting, and it can set the or adjust the hash rate and the power accordingly within seconds. And that ties into our energy tune capability that I mentioned, where you can adjust up or down within within seconds, which is inbuilt into our systems. So the combination of the fleet management, which can do that at a data center scale, with this energy tune capability, provides that unique ability to maximize profitability at any point in time, which we thought is a unique feature as well.
How far are we away from integrating weather data into ASIC ASIC firmware and fleet management? We can't be so far, you know.
No, it's interesting you mentioned that. So we've already integrated a number of variables. So we look at, of course, the Bitcoin price is we integrated it. We even can integrate. You look at transaction fees and how they're tracking, and there's predictive elements around that. But tomorrow you want to introduce temperature variables. That's something that now that we have the software, we can add more variables
Mhm.
to that. And it's like the days of weather forecasting. 20 years ago, it was very inaccurate. You
Yeah.
said it's going to rain, it would never rain, or vice versa. Now you have these models that can do it, and we have also we all given our Silicon Valley background, right? We've got we've got deep expertise in areas like AI as well that we're also using. For we even use our AI for support of our miners, and we've got capability where we can build more complex models. So we're open to it. Jesse, we don't have weather integrated as of now,
It's
but
coming. It's
if
coming though.
tomorrow that's a need, we can do that.
Cool. What surprised you? You seem like you guys listen a lot to your customers. Did a lot of research on what people need and what people are still lacking and what they would like to have. Maybe what surprised you? What did miners not even know they wanted that you now that you now can deliver to them, and what maybe surprised you in that process?
So a couple of things, Jesse. One is that maybe like I've also worked in very large, complex industries. Some of the team members, as I said, work in other industries, which are very high technology industries. And one of the things I was surprised is that somehow the industry has got tuned to low quality. So I'm putting out a provocative statement out there that this notion upon DOAs and RMAs should be an exception,
What is
at least in all the
RMAs?
industries that I work.
Sanjay, remind me, what is
So
RMAs?
RMA is a return, right? It's a
Okay.
return on a unit which is not functioning
All
properly.
right. And
So
DOAs
you
is
run
dead
it
on
for a month,
arrival, right? We have to explain these
and
terms.
DOA is dead on arrival,
Yes.
right? That you tried to switch it on and it didn't work, right? Dead on arrival. I mean, imagine if you're working in an industry, in the telecom industry, or you're working for an Amazon data center, and you have 5% of your equipment is dead on arrival. That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd get, you'd laughed out of the door if you came with a proposal of that type, right? In the data center world. So I just think that one of the things which was surprising is I said, wow, this industry somehow over the years has accepted this notion that it's okay to have these percentages of dead on arrivals or this high percentage of failure, once you're operating it the machine for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. That part is a surprise on the negative side. On the positive side, I've actually been very been to a lot of the data centers, visited a lot of the miners. The innovation and ingenuity that a lot of the miners are having, that they adjusting the fans, they adjust the firmware, adjusting the power supply unit, the amount of innovation that they've driven on their own in their own facilities has actually been quite remarkable. So we've been trying to say, let's work with you, partner on that innovation. And we've got deep expertise in large areas of hardware, software that we can truly make this industry a much better industry over the coming
It's
years.
almost, I mean, anything below 5% is acceptable. No, it shouldn't
So,
be like that. I fully agree with you. And it goes back to the thing that I said earlier about what we have now being quite rustic compared to what you're describing. Um, and the positive example that you mentioned is just folks innovating on their own around the low quality, adjusting for use cases that they have. And this is exactly why I said the thing about the competition being so important is because you just arrive faster at a future where we have a more diverse portfolio of ASICs and a more diverse range of use cases for them as well, which then translates to solving more real world problems, which is obviously a positive. Now, we've covered a lot of things that are going right. Sanjay, I want to ask you what's not going right. What problems are you yet to figure out? Where do you have hiccups? What's bothering you at the moment?
yeah, so we've of course, like any young company, there's been, of course, there's teething issues we've addressed. There's bumps along the road we've had to address in terms of ensuring that the machines are working exactly as they want. We're getting the full ramp up on the production side. So we've actually been doing that. But up till now, we've been very pleased. Just we've been hitting every single quarterly goal that we put out for both internally as well as for our investors. We've always been a notion of ensuring that if we commit a particular date for delivery or a particular quality, we stand by it. So we always want to under promise and over deliver. And that part has actually been working quite well. The part that is always unpredictable is you never know on the Bitcoin price and how that's going, and where that's going to go. So far we've had a great run up in the past now month or so, and but it was right down to the time when it was not that far back when it went down to below $20,000 Bitcoin, and now we're up to around 72,000, right? So that adjusting within that, and that put pressure on the price per terahash. And then some people would also say, oh, I don't care about quality. All I care is about dollars per terahash. Then having to ensure that we can adjust around that as well. So we have a low cost, solution, as well as a more of a good quality, uh, affordably priced solution has been critical as well. But so far, no, I think that it's been actually been going well, and we don't want to be complacent. We want to be sure that we are continuing to win based upon the needs of the marketplace and work with customers very, very closely, Jesse. But so far so good.
I mean, this is what I tell customers frequently, right? You can go with a machine that's much better on paper, price and efficiency wise, but if it's not operating as well as the other machine that's out there in the field, then your actual what's on paper doesn't matter, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's definitely very helpful. Is there anything that we did not cover that you want to?
No, I think you've been quite comprehensive, Jesse. I think that your also breadth and depth of the industry is great, and I think that your listeners and your customers, from what I understand, they're all very actively involved in Bitcoin. They're very knowledgeable, so it's been great to connect with them, through you. But I think we covered, from our space, just kind of in summary. I think we're here to be for the long run. We want to focus on Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and ensure we're driving the best total cost of ownership,
Hmm.
which we think is critical for the miners. We want to continue to drive innovation in different areas, whether it's things like energy tune and demand response, renewable energy sources and the ability to work with that, the ability to do zero touch provisioning, the temperature operating, all of those things we want to drive and continue to drive. So we're looking for feedback, right? If somebody has thoughts, ideas, we rapidly innovate against that. But overall, we're
Weather
very
data.
excited about the
You
space
got to
and
integrate
energy.
weather. No, I'm joking. Sorry.
We already got that feedback now, Jesse, from you.
All
So,
right.
you
Perfect.
know, as our, we'll call you the Rain Man,
Yes.
and we'll say, we'll integrate with that as well. But we'll love to get that feedback, and we would love to continue. But overall, I think you've covered a broad depth, and we've also said it's not just about the U.S., but really want an alternative supply, which we think is critical. And being based in the U.S. and North America, we think is an important element of geographical diversification
Mhm.
of the Bitcoin supply as well, Jesse. But overall, no, I think you've actually covered it.
I have one more question. Two more. One I just thought
Sure.
of. Is Auradine ever going to go public at all? Is that in the cards? And is then there a danger of being sort of taken over by a Chinese group that forces certain decisions on the company? Is that a scenario we need to be aware of?
Yeah. So again, like how the company evolves and grows, that's always hard to say. But we don't have any immediate plans. Of course, as the company grows, right now we're well funded. We're also in the process of just finalizing our next round of funding, which we'll be announcing soon, which we think is putting us in very good stead. So we're overall, we actually think that we're doing extremely well for right now. Down the line, how the company's strategy is to go public, I think there are two very different dimensions. A lot of companies have gone public and have done very, very well, right? I mean, take your name, pick up any, and Apple is public, Nvidia is public, right? A lot of other these high technology companies is public.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they've lost focus on their customers or they're being controlled by China or any one particular government. We're based in Silicon Valley. We're a strong US company. We meet very strong corporate governance guidelines, and we want to continue to meet that. So in all cases, we want to ensure that both customer focus doesn't get taken away and corporate governance does we do not lose focus on that. So that is paramount among all of our founders and among me as well as part of the executive team.
All right. Last but not least, does Bitcoin use enough energy or electricity? What do you think?
Now, so that's great. So I think that there's often a lot of debate around the whole energy consumption for Bitcoin, and it's obviously a complex topic. But just a few factors within that. One is that the security has been critical for Bitcoin, and we think that the use of energy through proof of work is also one key element that differentiates Bitcoin and drives security of the protocol, right? And it's not so that's one key. On the energy consumption itself, I know there's been a lot of reports put out, but there's one which says the total amount of gas that is flared, by flared mean burnt and not used at different oil sites, it's in the range of around, if I have the numbers correct, don't hold me to that, but I think it's like 230 billion cubic feet that are just flared every year, and that emits methane gas in the atmosphere. If you use just 10% of that or less than 10%, you could actually power all of the Bitcoin network
Mhm.
and beyond.
Yeah.
So, to put it in perspective, it's not that you just use a fraction of the wasted energy. You could cover more than 10 times of what the Bitcoin energy consumption is today, right? And then the third is that you've probably heard about the whole area of demand response, where a lot of the miners, they've helped and stabilize the grid and also generate investment in renewable energy because they provide the base load for a renewable energy project in places around the world. I've heard about places in Africa and South America which are saying without Bitcoin mining, these projects would not be viable, right? So I
Yeah.
think the overall area of energy, it's a complex area, but it's an area where I think just having the openness around it and the willingness to dialogue and dive into the facts and not the headlines is important.
And you guys are bringing more ASICs to the table that will hopefully get us to that future sooner through that competition. Thank you, Sanjay, for spending the time, for taking it, for answering all of my questions. Guys, if you learned something new, if Auradine has become a bit less cryptic, to me it was a little bit, where's the company, where do I get the ASICs, what's the philosophy? Lots of questions answered for myself, and I hope for you as well. Again, if you learned something new, check out the show notes, leave a subscription and a follow on the YouTube channel. Swan will appreciate it, and maybe send me some hashes. There's a description on how to do so in the description below. Maybe some of those will be originated from an Auradine miner. Guys, again, thank you for tuning in. Next Sunday we talk mining again. I hope I'll see you there. And yeah, until then, bye bye.